Who would want a beautiful girl as a roommate who can also cast spells? Although every time she uses magic, it usually results in big trouble. Luckily, there's Otogi, her familiar, to clean up the mess. One day, Otogi was harassed by a gang on the street because he had once mocked the leader's hairstyle. 4 of them attacked, but Otogi toyed with them like playing with dogs. Still, he ended up going home injured, telling his father he lost on purpose. His father was non-committal and suddenly mentioned Nico, triggering painful childhood memories for Otogi. Back then, Nico, the little witch, often caused him trouble. Fortunately, she had moved to a witch's sanctuary for training. Now, her training was complete, and she wanted Otogi to be her familiar. Otogi spat out his ramen in surprise. Aren't witches supposed to have animals as familiars? His father explained that their ghost family also had the lineage of familiars, and that their family had an ancient pact with Nico's family. Rules must be followed. Otogi slammed the table in frustration. Why not go yourself? His father would have loved to be the familiar for the high school witch, but he had to go abroad for a long trip starting tomorrow. It had to be Otogi who took on the role, essentially as a bodyguard since Nico was moving back alone. Otogi, also about to live alone, realized they could live together and support each other. He dreaded the intense life ahead, wondering what the clumsy witch had become by now. Just then, Nico crashed through his window on a broomstick, wishing him an early happy new year. She had indeed turned into a beautiful girl and said she was keeping their promise to meet again as an accomplished witch. Otogi was unimpressed and started sweeping up the glass with a broom. Nico was charmed by his dependable demeanor. Imagining their future under the same roof, she daydreamed about potential comic-like scenarios, while Otogi just kept cleaning. After collecting all the glass shards, he prepared to dispose of them. Nico saw this as an opportunity to show off her magic. She asked Otogi to provide something precious as a medium. Otogi handed over his favorite classic mug. The glass was fixed, but his beloved mug broke. The spell worked by consuming the emotional value placed on the object. Otogi was even more upset now. Why should his treasured item be sacrificed to fix glass Nico broke? Nico felt guilty and useless, still always relying on Otogi. Seeing her like this, Otogi softened. After all, she had fixed the glass, and her magic was impressive. He complimented her, capturing the heart of the beautiful girl eager to show off more spells. She tried a spell to make herself thin and flat, and turned herself into a paper-thin person. Unable to control her body, she floated out the window. Otogi chased after her. While floating, Nico vomited paper flowers. Despite Otogi's efforts, he couldn't catch paper-thin Nico. She crashed into a window and got stuck in a crevice, unable to move. The magic was about to wear off. If she returned to normal in that tight spot, she would indeed become very thin and flat. Just then, the same troublemaker approached Otogi again, revealing that his house was nearby. Otogi urgently asked him to bring out his family's vacuum cleaner. The troublemaker was pleased, as he had always disliked Otogi, who had beaten him up before. Otogi's father had made him apologize for that incident, leading the troublemaker to target Otogi repeatedly. After being advised by his father, Otogi no longer fought back, enduring their bullying. He grew to dislike his own ghostly powers, feeling they only caused unnecessary conflict and could not protect others. His father then sent him to learn their ghost clan's ancient techniques to better control his powers. At that time, Otogi thought of Nico. Now reunited, Otogi was determined to protect Nico. He punched a wall to rescue paper-thin Nico trapped inside. Just as he pulled her out, she returned to normal. The two embraced tightly. The troublemaker recognized Nico and angrily demanded they fix his wall. Otogi had already planned for this. He asked Nico to restore the wall using her magic, with the troublemaker's cherished hair as the cost. The wall was fixed, and the troublemaker ended up bald. On their way home, the two stopped at a mall to buy essentials. The load was heavy, so Nico cast a spell to make everything super light. Otogi then asked Nico if she planned to reveal her witch identity and live openly in this town. If so, Many people would seek her out. Nico was ready, as using magic to help people is a fundamental rule for magicians. New witches need social interaction and must use their magic for people to stabilize their powers. Being alone could expose her to dark forces, so revealing her witch identity was also a form of training. As her familiar, Otogi naturally supported her. Just after their conversation, a nearby building caught fire with a girl trapped on top. Nico immediately flew to the rescue on her broom, with Otogi following. They urged the girl to jump down. However, the broom couldn't support the weight of 3 people over a busy road. In a panic, Nico cast a lightness spell on Otogi. Although the broom flew again, Otogi became frivolous, a side effect of the spell changing his personality. As they casually discussed magic, the rescued girl couldn't understand a word. Otogi bluntly told her that Nico was a witch, and he was a ghost. Still, carrying 3 was a strain. So as they nearly fell, Nico also cast the spell on herself, making them both light. Though they saved the girl, she was unsure what to say. Eventually, Otogi and Nico made it home with their purchases, feeling unusually heavy. Nico checked her spellbook and realized it was a rebound effect from the lightness spell ending. Both were overwhelmed by gravity and felt emotionally heavy until they returned to normal that evening. Nico formally greeted Otogi on her knees in bed, thanking him for his help. Otogi had indeed controlled his ghostly powers well, likely due to extensive training. His father had once mentioned a prophecy that Nico would face a disaster within a year, foreseen by her mother, a prophetic witch. Although details were unclear, the solution divined was that the protector would be her familiar. Thus, Otogi's mission was to protect Nico, and their life together as roommates began. Otogi had to deal with an early morning confession from his childhood friend, Nico, but he was too dense to understand her feelings. He simply reminded her to change out of her pajamas before leaving her room, since they were alone together, which only set Nico's heart racing. She thought Otogi was looking at her with lecherous eyes, and daydreamed without restraint, while Otogi, not understanding, just respected her feelings. The day school started, they found themselves in the same class. Nico was excited, which made Otogi worry about her accidentally revealing her witch identity. He kept an eye on her, distracted by her every move. Nico noticed other students interacting and stole glances at Otogi, only to see him watching her. She thought he might confess on the first day of school, which made her both nervous and expectant. However, Otogi was just reminding her not to tell classmates that she was a witch during her introduction and to avoid using magic at school. Disappointed, Nico verbally agreed. Their homeroom teacher, an otaku who almost revealed her hobby of watching anime, asked everyone to introduce themselves. Otogi reminded Nico again not to mention she was a witch. Reluctantly, she agreed, knowing it was for her own good, due to a prophecy of impending disaster. After the class introductions, which showcased a variety of talents, Nico's focus remained solely on Otogi. She noticed he misspelled a word and tried to erase it with her mechanical pencil's eraser, which broke off, leaving only a small piece. Panicking, Otogi was disheartened, but Nico, not wanting to see her crush upset, thought of using a spell to enlarge the remaining eraser. The magic could enlarge the whole object if cast from the palm, or just a specific part if cast from the fingertips. Nico chose the latter, but accidentally hit Otogi's cowlick, causing it to grow rapidly. The teacher was the only one who noticed, facing the biggest challenge of her career. Meanwhile, Nico realized her mistake and tried to reverse the spell, needing to hit the exact spot again. Unfortunately, she missed and enlarged Otogi's head instead. Luckily, he was still unaware, and the class was distracted by another student's introduction. As Otogi's turn approached, Nico tried to cover up by pretending to be cute. Otogi, now with an enlarged arm, pretended his left hand was mysteriously painful, claiming to be a person with a special mission. His introduction effectively doomed his dating prospects at school for the next 3 years. After an awkward moment, Otogi asked Nico to reverse the spell. Just as she was about to cast it, The teacher called her name, causing her to accidentally make herself giant with a spell from her palm. Everyone witnessed the anomaly. With no choice left, Nico admitted she was a witch. It turned out the school already knew from her mother. The teacher explained that Nico would continue her witch training while at school. Disheartened, Nico had hoped to make some friends through her introduction, but now doubted anyone would want to approach her. As the first day of school ended this way, Otogi and Nico were about to head home when two female classmates invited Nico to a diner. Otogi encouraged her to interact more with her peers. The three girls went together, but encountered a group of rowdy youths at the entrance. Kara, a cool girl, scolded them and led Nico and Kukumi into the diner. Kara and Kukumi were most interested in Nico's magic, and Nico was happy to have peers who wanted to be friends with her. This was her first time at a family restaurant with friends. Kukumi shared that she had a similar experience in middle school when Kara approached her to go to a family restaurant, and they became good friends. However, another reason Kara wanted to befriend Nico was actually because of Otogi. When she learned that Otogi and Nico were childhood friends and even lived together, she was shocked. Nico quickly clarified that she and Otogi were not dating, but she wasn't eager to introduce Otogi to Kara and deliberately spoke poorly of him, claiming he was unreliable, bad at fighting, and self-centered. Unbeknownst to her, at that very moment, Otogi was outside, single-handedly dealing with the troublemakers who had been eyeing them. He overheard Nico's harsh words about him. The next morning, Nico was surrounded by new classmates curious about her identity as a witch. Otogi was also encircled by a group of odd characters, mainly interested in experiencing Nico's magic. They knew Otogi was close to her and wanted him to relay messages, which was unnecessary because Nico couldn't help showing off when complimented. She asked everyone what magic they wanted to see and recommended a spell that altered gravity to the walls. She demonstrated it, and when the teacher entered the classroom, she found students sitting on all sides, making it look like something out of a fantasy. The teacher reminded everyone not to pull such pranks again and started the class, which involved a group bonding activity. The students scoffed at the teacher's suggestion of playing an old game like The Wind Blows, because they had a witch who could enhance the game with magic. Despite Otogi's objections, the whole class ended up on the sports field, where Nico set up a boundary and explained the rules before letting everyone fly. The students were thrilled. Some cautiously tried flying, others dove in with full force, and some enjoyed leisure time in the air. A few boys performed stunts where the girls could see them, and the more imaginative ones started playing a Dragon Ball game. The teacher really wanted to join, but had to maintain her dignity as an educator. While other students were concerned about how high everyone was flying, Otogi was worried about Nico exhausting her magic. Nico said she could recharge her magic with a red bean bun and was happy to see everyone enjoying themselves. She had always wanted to share the joy of flying, a wish granted from her witch heritage. Otogi couldn't understand her happiness. Being born a ghost didn't seem joyful to him. Nico suggested he reveal his true nature to everyone, but Otogi refused, remembering how his friends had shunned him in the past due to his identity. Suddenly, a truck accidentally entered Nico's magical circle on the edge of the field and started flying, becoming unstable in the air. Otogi rushed to support the truck with his strength. The other students were stunned. Nico tried to explain it was her magic at work, but Otogi stopped her, choosing to be honest, and started to reveal his true identity as a ghost. Before he could finish, the crowd rushed forward, excitedly praising Otogi's strength. Given that witches existed, and Nico's childhood friend was a ghost, it didn't seem so extraordinary anymore. Thus, the true identities of Otogi and Nico were revealed on the first day of school. Nico's mother was conducting a prophecy by matching numbers in a book to specific pages and lines. Linking the selected words together, she completed the prophetic sentence, which foretold that dogs and raindrops will bring disaster. Meanwhile, Otogi made himself a cup of coffee after waking up, enjoying his happiest moments during the leisure of a holiday. However, Nico tried to seduce him early in the morning by casually walking out of her room in just her pajamas. Unfortunately, Otogi was not swayed and reminded her that even on a day off, one shouldn't be too lazy, joking that she had turned into an old maid. Upon reflection, Nico realized all her clothes were nearly the same, so changing wouldn't make much difference. This realization struck her, and she decided to put more effort into her dressing by using magic to replicate clothes from a fashion magazine, although the backs of the clothes appeared transparent because the magazine only showed fronts. Nico didn't care and strutted out to show Otogi her new outfit. However, Otogi remained uninterested and was about to pour himself more coffee when Nico insisted he stay seated and approached him sideways like a crab, careful not to show her back. She demanded he comment on her new outfit. Otogi, unimpressed, responded nonchalantly and asked if she planned to go out, suggesting they leave now if so. Nico was horrified at the thought of going out dressed like that. Otogi didn't understand why she couldn't wear the outfit outside. Blushing, Nico admitted she just wanted him to see it. Otogi then confessed he preferred her usual attire, finding it lighter and more elegant. He affirmed that people look best in clothes they love, making Nico feel better. She rushed to change, forgetting about the transparent back, which momentarily unsettled Otogi, causing his hand to tremble with his cup. After Nico changed back into her own clothes, Otogi complimented her, saying she looked stunning, which greatly pleased Nico. Unexpectedly, Otogi moved closer, wanting a better look, as if he were about to kiss her. Nico puckered up in anticipation, only to realize Otogi was just interested in her clothes. He even recognized it as an antique dress, which indeed had been passed down from Nico's great-grandmother in France. Excited, Otogi guessed it was from the 1920s, a real treasure. Nico then realized that Otogi's heart raced not for her but because he was a vintage clothing enthusiast. Otogi began talking non-stop about technical terms Nico didn't understand, proudly telling her his jacket was from the 1940s. Nico quickly interrupted him to explain the situation with her earlier outfit, learning that Otogi hadn't seen it clearly due to the light reflection. The next moment, a trash bin came flying his way, a sign that Nico was not pleased with his lack of interest in her body. Living with such a beautiful girl without showing any reaction might make her think he found her annoying. Otogi admitted this, noting that his home had always been quiet with just him and his father, and Nico's presence, though noisy, wasn't bad at all. This comment diffused Nico's anger. Otogi then reassured her to wear what she liked, and his excitement was merely because their tastes in clothing were so similar. With the weather being nice, Otogi suggested they have lunch outside, and just like that, Nico was cheered up instantly. Today, Nico's mother sent many items, all of which were Nico's comics. Included was a letter addressed to Otogi. She began by thanking him for taking care of her daughter. She then explained that she was currently at a sanctuary in Japan, a place where witches settled to avoid witch hunts and where she was practicing her craft. To gain accurate information about an impending calamity, she planned to stay there to enhance her magical powers. For the time being, she had to entrust Nico to Otogi. Otogi grew increasingly frustrated as he read the letter. Despite being peers, why was he expected to act like Nico's mother? He firmly decided to follow Nico's mother's suggestion not to indulge Nico's mischief and to make her handle her own affairs. Nico planned to use magic to move the boxes herself. She cast a cloning spell, creating an exact, albeit half-sized, duplicate of herself. However, two smaller figures moving items weren't as efficient as one adult, and their intelligence was also halved. Thinking more clones would increase efficiency, she ended up with 4 quarter-sized Nikos. Otogi, unable to comment on the absurdity, noticed no improvement in efficiency. The chatter from 4 mouths only made things noisier. Eventually, he had to step in and move the boxes himself. Afterward, he told Nico to revert the clones, but the 4 mini Nikos wanted to play outside it longer. Otogi remembered he hadn't finished the letter. Nico's mother had received a new prophecy stating that dogs and raindrops would bring disaster. He didn't understand what it meant until he heard screaming outside. One of the Nikos was being chased by a dog, and the other 3 were crying. Otogi rushed out and held Nico as the dog's owner, with a loose leash, hurried over, smiling apologetically. Otogi's stern look frightened the owner away. The 4 Nikos then merged back into one full-sized Nico. In the chaos, Otogi got bitten by the dog. Feeling guilty, Nico hurried to make him coffee. Otogi opened a spell that came with the letter, explaining that if Nico avoided the disaster, the magical symbol would disappear, showing the calamity was still ongoing. As the symbol remained, the danger wasn't over. Otogi checked the weather forecast. It would rain in the evening. A mysterious person in a raincoat was standing across from their house. Despite the rain, Otogi and Nico went out to buy yokan, as Nico needed to replenish her magical energy quickly with red bean paste after using magic. Otogi didn't tell Nico about the disaster, not wanting her to worry. He was silently determined to protect her and suggested they share an umbrella to close their distance. Unexpectedly, they met a classmate on the way, but Nico declined the invitation to continue home with Otogi. However, they ended up not on their way home but in a park, and the rain stopped. Nico thought Otogi was about to confess his feelings, but he just asked her to hold the umbrella while he called out to someone following them. As he tried to figure out who it might be, Nico was thrilled, thinking it was a character from her favorite cartoon. Thinking of the prophecy about dogs and raindrops, Otogi confronted the person in the dog mask about their identity. The assailant attacked, revealing a police baton and the ability to manipulate wind. Otogi swiftly got behind the attacker, restraining his hands and pulling off the mask, revealing a blonde individual known to Nico. It was Kanshi, a Tengu living in the mountains where Nico trained, who provocatively challenged Otogi's role and introduced himself as a crow familiar sent to protect Nico. Nico has unexpectedly reconnected with his childhood friend, the Tengu, Kanshi. They hadn't seen each other for nearly 3 years, so Kanshi was especially happy to have a meal with Nico again. The two chatted away about their past training experiences, completely ignoring Otogi's presence. Kanshi even deliberately showcased how close he was to Nico, asserting his dominance in front of Otogi. Surprisingly, Otogi seemed unbothered, only wanting to know what Kanshi was really doing here. Kanshi complained that it was because of his personality that Nico's mother had asked him to be a bodyguard, which annoyed Otogi so much that he slapped a freshly fried steak right onto Kanshi's head, demanding an explanation. Since he was Nico's bodyguard, why had he only appeared now? The two quickly started arguing. Nico then cast a spell on an umbrella to help explain. It turns out that Tengu and demons have historically had a bad relationship, although it has eased now. Otogi finally understood why Kanshi harbored such animosity towards him, but he was clueless about many things, especially since the existence of Tengu is particularly vague. Before he could finish, he angered Kanshi, who was most upset about the demon's indifferent attitude towards Tengu. The empty look Otogi gave him nearly brought Kanshi to tears. It seemed only the Tengu cared, while the demons didn't regard them at all. Unable to hold back, Otogi teased that Kanshi might be developing feelings from his resentment. This was because Kanshi's father had always taught him never to lose to demons, and his dad had binged on the manga, Demon Slayer, because he found the demon-slaying scenes thrilling. At a loss for words, Otogi pressed Kanshi to confess why he had stayed hidden. Kanshi admitted he wanted to take all the credit alone to elevate the status of the Tengu. Nico smiled appreciatively for Kanshi's protection, but then, Umbrella Brother revealed the truth. Nico's mother had paid off Kanshi's debt, and in return, he was to protect Nico. While Nico was making tea, Kanshi gave Otogi another prophecy, saying that there were enemies in the school watching Nico. So Kanshi had been investigating the school for danger since enrollment, a fact he kept from Nico to avoid drawing him to darkness. However, when Nico returned, the two resumed their confrontational stance. Otogi insisted that one bodyguard was enough and told Kanshi to get out. Their disagreement nearly escalated into a fight, and Otogi's indifferent attitude infuriated Kanshi even more. Kanshi stormed out, crying, "I hate demons the most." Not wanting the relationship between his two childhood friends to become so strained, Nico had a brilliant idea when he saw the cookies on the table. He cast a spell of brotherly love on the cookies, which would foster friendship in those who ate them, but only the person who ate first would develop one-sided affection towards the next eater. Nico let Otogi eat first. Oblivious, Otogi complied and then passed one to Kanshi. As soon as Kanshi ate it, the magic took effect. Otogi, finding himself increasingly unable to stay away from Kanshi's face, pinned him against the wall in a dramatic wall slam, confessing a sudden strange feeling toward him and insisting on being physically close. Kanshi pushed him away and continued eating cookies. The more he ate, the stronger the magic's effect. Otogi, full of energy, insisted on linking arms with Kanshi, who then turned to Nico for help. Nico blushed, admitting he was quite curious to see them getting along so closely. Poor Kanshi had to run outside to escape the chaos. However, being helpful, he stopped to retrieve a balloon stuck in a tree for 2 kids and accidentally dropped the box of cookies, which the kids and a dog all sampled. Now, all 3 children and the dog were also insisting on being close to Kanshi. When Nico came outside, he was greeted by this bizarre scene. After the magic finally wore off, Nico felt a bit aggrieved upon hearing their accusations. She had only wanted them to get along. Just then, the doorbell rang, providing her a respite. Nico hurried to answer the door, but soon after, a scream echoed from the entrance. Otogi and Kanshi rushed out to find Nico wearing a strange outfit, her hands seemingly tied behind her back. She explained it was an old witch's garment sent by her mother, which she had put on to show Otogi. However, the moment she put it on, the garment hardened, and suddenly 2 eyes opened on its front, declaring that it had taken control of the witch's body. This bizarre ability indicated that their enemy was also a magician. Otogi hesitated to act, fearing the garment would tighten suddenly. Now, Nico's arms were bound, preventing her from using magic, and the garment even carried her away flying. Neither Otogi nor Kanshi could fly, but fortunately, as a Tengu, Kanshi could command crows to follow her while he and Otogi chased on the ground. Nico wasn't worried about her safety, confident that Otogi would always come to her rescue. She recalled the time she climbed a tree to retrieve a kite using her magic wand, only to drop it and get stuck in the tree until Otogi found her. Soon, Otogi and Kanshi spotted Nico in the air. The area was too open with nothing to climb on, but luckily, Umbrella Brother caught up. Otogi had an idea. He had Kanshi and Umbrella Brother assist him by using the umbrella to help Kanshi perform a maneuver, allowing Otogi to gracefully fly up. The enemy then made Nico's garment as hard as armor, which played right into Otogi's hands. He smashed it with a punch, shattering the garment completely. A naked Nico fell, but Kanshi quickly performed another maneuver below, ensuring her gentle landing, while Otogi crash-landed on the ground. Fortunately, both were unharmed, and the garment was reduced to ordinary cloth pieces. They gained no clues about the enemy, and Nico felt a bit guilty for her carelessness. Otogi assured her it wasn't her fault, but advised more caution in the future. The magical seal from Nico's mother had not disappeared, indicating the crisis was not yet over. However, with him and Kanshi around, Nico only needed to live as usual. Seizing the opportunity, Kanshi suggested moving into their house, as originally agreed by their parents. Familiars cooperating closely would better protect Nico. Of course, Kanshi wouldn't tell them his suggestion was also because he could no longer afford his rent-a-fact already betrayed by the overly honest Umbrella Brother. To foster future cooperation, Otogi and Kanshi decided to set aside their prejudices and get along well, exactly what Nico wanted to see. She knew both her childhood friends were strong yet feared loneliness. Making good friends was also beneficial for them. After wrapping up, they took a group selfie to send to Nico's mom. On their way back, neighbors warmly greeted Kanshi, surprising him how quickly he had won everyone over with his pleasant personality, making his interaction with Otogi much less painful. Nico's good friend Kukumi is an artist who posts her fan art online. Unexpectedly, their homeroom teacher had also read the same manga and shipped the same couple as Kukumi. Hearing their discussion, her ears perked up immediately. From their conversation, she pinpointed Kukumi's account, which happened to be her favorite artist. However, knowing that otakus on social media hate having their real-life information revealed, the teacher pretended to know nothing. But then she saw a picture on Kukumi's phone, confirming that Kukumi was indeed her beloved artist. Afterward, she was so distracted even at work, as she was a longtime fan of Kukumi. As Kukumi's artwork improved and her fanbase grew, the teacher felt a sense of pride as if her own daughter had succeeded. She meticulously critiqued each drawing. The quality of the artwork was unquestionable, but most importantly, the interpretation of the characters' relationships was extremely precise. Although the 2 characters knew each other through another character and seemed to have no interaction in the original work, in episode 35 during the retreat segment, they both subtly became aware of each other's school rankings. And one of them, a character with overwhelming strength, actually cared about others' rankings. What else could this be if not love? Kukumi's latest fan art depicted a scene from episode 57 where the 2 characters accidentally expressed their feelings. Besides their fans, no one else cared. Moreover, Kukumi used a scarf to represent the complex emotional changes of the characters. The composition was so divine that the teacher could think of no other word to describe it. She involuntarily called out Kukumi's name. Unexpectedly, Kukumi had just come to the office to deliver a promotional draft, which also included illustrations. The teacher barely composed herself when she saw the illustrations characters from that manga. She couldn't contain herself and ended up discussing art with Kukumi. Kukumi openly admitted she was a hardcore otaku and asked if the teacher also liked manga. Unfortunately, the teacher didn't have the courage to admit it. However, the next second, Kukumi saw the manga on her desk, quickly expressing her love for it and asking which part the teacher liked. Under Kumi's pressing, the teacher ended up chatting along. At that moment, Kukumi pulled out a pendant the teacher had accidentally dropped in the classroom, revealing she had known all along that they shared the same favorite. She couldn't understand why the teacher hid it and wanted to discuss the manga more. At this point, the teacher had no choice but to admit it, succumbing to Kukumi's gentle persistence. On the other side, Nico was approached by a male classmate who hoped she could help him reduce his presence so he could sneak out to use the bathroom during class without being noticed. Otogi was speechless. Was magic really necessary for such a trivial matter? In fact, this boy had a psychological trauma from childhood, as he was mocked by other boys when using the school bathroom. Since then, he had been terrified of this situation. Fortunately, Nico actually knew such a spell. By maintaining a specific hand gesture, he could instantly erase his presence. Thus, during the 5th period, when the boy's stomach hurt again, he glanced at Otogi, who gave him an encouraging look. He immediately assumed the position and carefully headed towards the classroom door, erasing his presence. Unexpectedly, he encountered the gym teacher patrolling halfway. Even though he had erased his presence, the gym teacher, with his keen sense of smell, almost detected him. Luckily, Otogi came out and distracted the gym teacher. The boy took this opportunity to dash to the bathroom, only to realize he couldn't pull down his pants while maintaining the position. If he stopped now, people in the class would soon notice his absence. Just as he was about to reach his limit, the bell rang for the end of class. Seizing the moment, he quickly pulled down his pants and relieved himself. Soon, a few boys entered the bathroom and noticed someone was using it, but they did not mock him. This helped the boy overcome his psychological trauma, and he decided to confidently ask for a bathroom break in the future. Still, he was grateful to Nico for using magic for such a trivial matter. At this moment, Nico's wand in her backpack started glowing. It was the magic stone on it. Magic stones for novice witches glow blue, turning pure white when they can stand alone. Nico's magic stone was now turning white, a sign of her growth. Nico decided to continue listening to everyone's troubles and use magic to bring them happiness, unaware that another witch was watching all this. Today, as Nico and her friends were returning home from school, a teacher stopped them at the door. It turned out a cat had hidden under his car, preventing him from driving home. Otogi simply lifted the car, and the cat ran away. The girls were attracted by Otogi's strength and came over to flirt with him. However, the cat was actually the other witch in disguise, targeting Otogi to make him her familiar. But this witch, Nemu, appeared to be socially anxious, turning back into a cat and following the trio home. Soon, spotted the cat. Kanchi and Nico both wanted to pet her, but the cat hissed at them, as her only target was Otogi. Nemu learned that Otogi, young as he was, had mastered the art of Oni-gen, a highly regarded demon in the industry. Later, hearing that he had become Nico's familiar, she was shocked and envious. Thinking she also had the right to contract with a demon, she planned to woo him away, but her social anxiety prevented her from approaching directly. She just followed them home as a cat, even being allowed inside. Nico and Kanchi didn't mind. The two fools were busy with their gashapon toys. Just as Nemu was getting annoyed by them, Nico suddenly rushed over and instinctively touched her back. Nemu, startled, jumped onto Kanchi, nearly getting hugged by him, but finally leaped onto Otogi's lap. Seeing his face, she couldn't help but feel her heart pound. Otogi took this opportunity to teach them the proper way to pet a cat, starting with the neck where a cat can't groom itself. Nemu didn't resist at all and settled down on Otogi's lap. Then he gently stroked her back, and Nemu not only didn't resist but felt enveloped by a sense of security. Otogi's hands made her reluctant to leave, and she almost fell asleep, nearly forgetting that her transformation spell would revert if she fell asleep. She couldn't give up the pleasure, eventually turning back into her human form. Fortunately, Otogi was busy with Kanchi and Nico playing with gashapon, and none of them cared about her. Nemu took the chance to slip out the window, determined to make Otogi her familiar next time. Today, Nico cast a love success spell for a female classmate, hoping her confession would be successful. However, their conversation was overheard by another boy. As Nico and Otogi were heading back to the classroom, Otogi suddenly asked Nico about her weight, claiming he was her health guardian. But how could a girl easily tell someone her weight? Seeing Nico's strong reaction, Otogi did not press further. Meanwhile, other girls around whispered about how handsome Otogi was. His fan club seemed to be growing, making Nico feel even more threatened. Moreover, Otogi continued his training, catching leaves thrown at random by Nico, while blindfolded to sharpen his senses. Kanji witnessed their interaction and quietly asked Nico that evening if she was dating Otogi. Nico wished she was, but Otogi was too dense. He remained indifferent, even though he lived with a beauty like Nico. Kanji suggested it might not all be Otogi's fault since Nico, despite being cute, always acted clueless and failed to show her charm. To Otogi, she needed to be more direct. Just then a phone advertisement mentioned, "Flowing hair enhances femininity." Kanji had an idea and devised a plan with Nico. Since Otogi always went to the east building with vending machines during lunch break, they planned to have Kanji blow Nico's hair to make her look more charming as Otogi passed by in the hallway. Soon it was lunch break. Nico ambushed Otogi in the hallway and signaled Kanji when she saw Otogi approaching. Thus, Otogi looked up to see the literary girl Nico, with the wind supposedly making a fuss today. However, Otogi only cared about where this wind came from, while the sparkling Nico approached him step by step. But when she opened her eyes, she saw Otogi's vacant expression. The wind had not stirred his heart. Nico signaled Kanji to increase the wind, which ended up blowing Nico into a Super Saiyan-like state, propelling her directly in front of Otogi. To the uninitiated, it looked as though she was about to fight him. Just then, the school nurse passed by, and Nico asked her if she looked beautiful, frightening the nurse who thought Nico might have psychological issues. Additionally, because of the strong wind around Nico, the nurse's health records flew away. Hearing this, Otogi immediately held his breath and dashed out, swiftly collecting all the scattered papers, prompting screams of admiration from the girls watching. Nico felt even worse inside and was later severely scolded by Otogi. Otogi's remarkable performances lately had boosted his popularity at school, but he was just confused by strangers striking up conversations with him, as he had always been focused on his training and had few friends. Hearing this, Nico suddenly thought maybe this wasn't so bad. Unexpectedly, the next day a boy asked her out, hoping to chat with her during the upcoming excursion. Kara was incredibly jealous, but it was normal for boys to confess to the little witch Nico, especially since the excursion would take them to a mountain with a tree known as the bonding tree. Legend had it that a meal shared under this tree led couples to a united future, presenting a perfect opportunity for confessions. Kanji overheard their conversation and urged Nico that night to take this chance to confess to Otogi. Nico, terrified, repeatedly refused, feeling she wasn't the type of woman Otogi would like. Kanji saw through her, realizing she was just avoiding the issue. Nico broke down. She had tried hard to show her charm before, but Otogi had looked uninterested. Kanji also recalled when they went shopping together, Otogi mentioned they were familiars, and Nico was a guardian being, so it was inappropriate to have feelings for the master. Their conversation grew more despairing, blaming Otogi's strong sense of duty. However, this could be a breakthrough, indicating he cared a lot about Nico. They then planned to find a way to shake Otogi's feelings. The day of the hike arrived, and the homeroom teacher led the students up the mountain. Nico and Otogi naturally walked together. Nico took this opportunity to tell him that someone had asked her out under the bonding tree. She expected Otogi to be jealous, but instead, he said he wouldn't be guarding her during that time and encouraged her to act freely. This response shattered Nico's defenses. She repeatedly confirmed that Otogi really had no romantic feelings for her, only a genuine wish for her to enjoy normal high school life. Without saying much more, Nico walked ahead to distance herself from Otogi. During the lunch break, Otogi, surveying the surroundings, surprisingly found a like-minded person, the most silent otaku in class. They both shared an interest in a specific rock band and discussed subcultures unfamiliar to others. Seeing this, Nico quietly left for the bonding tree. To her surprise, many people had already gathered there. Even more outrageous was that the group waiting for Nico turned out to be a whole fan club. Thinking she was about to receive multiple confessions, Nico felt somewhat embarrassed. But the next moment, the boys collectively asked her to cast love spells on them, claiming the effects would be doubled under the bonding tree. Nico had not anticipated such absurd rumors and, frightened, turned and ran with a crowd chasing after her. She cast a shrinking spell on herself and managed to escape through the bushes, accidentally falling into Otogi's pocket. There, she discovered that a girl had brought Otogi under the bonding tree to confess her feelings. Nico felt nervous, unsure how Otogi would respond. Otogi stated he didn't know her well enough to reciprocate her feelings. This only made the girl more infatuated. She asked if he had someone he liked, and after a moment of thought, Otogi said no. Nico's heart sank. But then Otogi mentioned he did care about someone, though they were always a worry. He admitted he enjoyed being relied upon. The girl suggested this must mean he liked that person, and encouraged Otogi to recall any moments when he might have felt affection for them. Nico also reminisced. She remembered crying on the steps as a child when her father left her and her mother. The relationship between her parents was always strained, with her father often saying, "It's too difficult for a normal human and a witch to be family." This time, it was because Nico's magical powers had accidentally exploded and damaged their home. Her father couldn't tolerate it, and Nico blamed herself, fearing her powers would make her increasingly disliked. Crying, she wished her father would hug her again. Otogi then hugged her tightly, giving her a sense of warmth. Coming out of the memory, Otogi unintentionally smiled, saying he remembered. He then said goodbye to the girl and planned to find somewhere to eat. Nico took the chance to fly out, but a gust of wind blew her back, and her magic wore off. Fortunately, Otogi caught her in time. They looked into each other's eyes, and an ambiguous atmosphere emerged. Kanji watched silently from the tree, hiding his role. He also encountered an old man who revealed a truth: the big tree wasn't the real bonding tree. The real bonding tree was an inconspicuous little oak nearby, a fact that had become distorted by rumors from their generation, and it just so happened that Otogi and Nico were under that little oak tree having their meal. Nico and Kanji recently became YouTubers, posting nonsensical videos daily. Today they were singing their original song, when Otogi barged in mid-recording, hence the video titled, "Roommate Interrupts Filming." Unaware of their activities initially, Otogi later received their confession. They'd heard YouTubers earned easy money and wanted quick profits. Otogi scolded them harshly. Fame wasn't achievable through half-baked efforts. The duo remained unfazed until Otogi searched their channel. 26 subscribers, titles and thumbnails devoid of appeal, content utterly tedious. Creating impactful videos requires effort. Ad revenue needs watch hours and subscribers. You can't earn with 10 views per video. Otogi lectured while scrolling through comments, filled with familiar names. Suddenly recalling potential help, Otogi introduced them to Megami, a classmate obsessed with niche subcultures, who also made mediocre videos. Megami's content at least featured proper recommendations, despite his small audience. As he rambled about production techniques, Kanji yanked his hair demanding his channel link, revealing mere dozens of subscribers. Nico clicked a random video. Megami aimlessly digressed from game reviews to personal anecdotes, desperately seeking attention. Kanji couldn't endure the cringe. Get to the point already. Though unimpressed, Otogi noted Megami's videos still outclass Nico's amateur clips. He urged Megami to mentor them. During tutorials, a question emerged. If Megami knew proper techniques, why did his videos flop? Too niche. Megami shrugged. I never sought mass approval. His most viewed video showcased a self-programmed game with universally mocked comments. Otogi had an epiphany. Let's film gameplay streams. They borrowed Megami's equipment and featured his surreal game. Otogi took full control, directing Nico's gameplay footage, editing Kanji's voiceover roasts, polishing the final cut. The difference showed instantly. Professional title sequence, Nico struggling with abstract gameplay, Kanji's relentless sarcasm. The video exploded with views and praise, though editing drained Otogi. 3 more successful videos followed, but Nico and Kanji lost interest rapidly. Only Otogi remained traumatized by this whirlwind experience. Nico's class has an exceptionally beautiful girl named Suzuka, the epitome of an elegant young lady, with top academic performance. Nico secretly admired her, assuming Otogi would favor this type. Upon inspecting her notebook, he discovered Suzuka's atrocious handwriting, revealing her hidden idiocy. Though crammed with knowledge since childhood by her grandmother, she couldn't apply any skill practically. Even her fried shrimp became chicken nuggets. Suzuka begged Nico to use magic-enhancing intelligence, but no such spell existed. Most of Nico's magic had time limits anyway. Undeterred, Suzuka pleaded for temporary enhancement. She needed to pass her grandmother's tea ceremony test. Nico devised alternative magic, synchronizing Otogi and Suzuka's movements. Whatever motions Otogi performed, Suzuka's body would replicate. On exam day, Otogi in a separate room would control Suzuka's actions. Otogi spent days mastering tea rituals. On the eve of the test, Megami arrived with camera-equipped glasses, streaming visuals to phones, allowing off-site observers. Before rehearsals concluded, Suzuka's grandmother returned unexpectedly. The unprepared team launched operations immediately. Scolded by her grandmother, Suzuka stayed silent until Nico urged Otogi. "Say something." Otogi blurted, "Wait, are our mouths synced too?" Suzuka parroted this verbatim. Despite zero practice, Otogi adapted swiftly, mechanically agreeing to every critique. The test commenced with door-opening etiquette, pushing the panel to create a narrow gap. But differing arm lengths caused Suzuka's hand to knock futilely against unyielding wood, accidentally flinging the door wide open. Next came the knee crawl entry. Otogi's textbook movements translated into Suzuka's frog-like hops due to mismatched body weights. She bounced before her grandmother, performed the bow, and presented sweets. Actually, Kanchi substituted chocolate cookies. Suzuka choked, mimicking Otogi's cookie-eating motions. During tea sipping, invisible lip alignment caused liquid to smear across Suzuka's mouth. Grandmother declared failure. "You lack understanding." Graceful movements stem from cultivated hearts. A wasp's sudden intrusion saved the day. Terrified of bees, grandmother scrambled wildly. Otogi grabbed a water ladle, executing onigoroshi jutsu. Suzuka mirrored perfectly, capturing the wasp mid-air. Grandmother tearfully praised, "The most beautiful movements I've ever witnessed," revoking Suzuka's failure. Now facing Kodo exams, Suzuka shamelessly begged, "Otogi, learn the zither next."